Where's Chris?
How's this for distance? Can you hear me in the back? Okay, yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ross, for your introduction and your hospitality. Dr. Ross and his wife, Christine, have been really superb hosts to me, very loving while I've been here. And thank all of you for coming out on this lovely evening. I hear there's a couple of physicians in the audience and people in the health professions. So this presentation about the effects of plant-based diets in the human body really have a little science in it, but I don't think it's anything that is going to mystify any of you. It's pretty simple stuff. And I've got a balky slide advancer here, but it seems to be working. I graduated from the University of Illinois College of Medicine in Chicago, and I've taken postgraduate training in surgery, anesthesiology, orthopedics at the Vancouver General Hospital in Vancouver, and obstetrics at the University of California Hospital in San Francisco. I've spent my first 10 years doing blood and guts medicine in emergency rooms, operating rooms, urgent care centers in Hawaii, California, New Zealand. And I thought I was going to be doing blood and guts acute care medicine my whole life until I joined the attending staff. There's my balky slide advance there. I joined the attending staff at True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, California. It's about an hour north of San Francisco. And at True North, we got the same patients. It's an inpatient facility. People come to True North. I've had some recent dental surgery, and my left upper lip here is not obeying my instructions too well. So if I lisp a little bit, it's a temporary post-operative complication there.
Right in here. He just got started.
People came to True North and they stayed there for days and days, sometimes weeks at a time. And they brought with them the standard Western diseases that occupy the waiting rooms of primary care physicians across the nation. Most of them, like most Americans, were either clinically overweight, if not obese. We saw rampant clogged arteries showing up as elevated lipids, elevated blood pressure, angina pectoris. Saw florid type 2 diabetes, and a host of inflammatory diseases involving every organ system, from lungs to guts to joints to immune system. As I tell the medical students and the medical residents that I lecture to, welcome to medicine in the 21st century. When, no matter what specialty they go into, anything from anesthesia to urology, emergency medicine, family practice, obstetrics, doesn't matter, when they open the door of their waiting room, who is waiting there to see them to get their medical help? Mr. and Mrs. America, generally overweight, hypertensive, atherosclerotic, insulin resistant, and inflamed. Now, of course, not every person has all these maladies, but there's an overlay of these diseases afflicting most Americans, and many of them don't even realize it, but this is who we've become in the 21st century. And if you go to a conventionally trained doctor with these conditions, they will listen to your story, do a physical exam, get a diagnosis, and then reach for their prescription pad and get you on the appropriate medication or send you off to the appropriate specialist or surgeon. This is how Western medicine is practiced in today's world.
You're looking for doctors.
Well, at True North, we did not want to buy into this model of treatment because nobody gets healthier. Yeah, you can calm down those numbers. It's called cholesterol and sugars, these powerful drugs. The person doesn't get any healthier. In fact, they continue to get more obese and more ill, and they get their heart attacks and strokes and die just in the same way, whether they've been on statins or not. At True North, we got these folks on a program that deals with the true cause, the root causes of why they are sitting there in these bodies, overweight, hypertensive, diabetic, and inflamed. At True North, we got these folks on a diet of whole plant foods. Every breakfast, there was a big pot of fresh oatmeal with cut up fruit, sunflower seeds, berries, and a variety of plant milks, oat milk, hemp milk, rice milk. Every lunch, every dinner had big colorful salads, hearty vegetable soups, big plates of steamed green and yellow vegetables, and a variety of filling entrees, no cheese burritos, no oil stir fries, hearty stews and soups and chilies and curries, with lots of fresh fruits for dessert. And we encourage these folks to eat all they want. There was no portion control, no carb counting, no calorie counting. We want them to eat till their heart was content and their tummies were filled to content. Why could we be so easygoing with with our dietary limitations? Because what these folks were eating, by and large, were whole plant foods. And Mother Nature, in her wisdom, made whole plant foods, broccoli, kale, lettuce, beans, mostly out of fiber and water. That's what vegetables and fruits really are made of by their weight. And so these folks are filling their belly up with fiber and water, and they pee out the water, and they poop out the fiber, and it doesn't stick to them. It passes on through. The calorie density is so low that if they go back for a third bowl of vegetable soup, who cares? It doesn't really matter. This is joyous eating. This is guilt-free eating. The changes we saw in these folks as they stayed there and ate this food were nothing short of spectacular. Emily came in almost 100 pounds overweight. She's on 2 medications for high blood pressure. She started eating the high fiber, low calorie density food. The weight comes off about 1/2 pound a day. As the potassium and the magnesium in the vegetables works their way into the artery walls muscles relax, and the arteries dilate, and blood pressures come down, and we can start getting them off their medications for high blood pressure. Now, what we didn't want to happen were for the folks to come and eat this lovely food at True North, lose the weight, lower their blood pressure, have their asthma stop wheezing, but then go home and start eating the cheeseburgers and buffalo wings and pepperoni pizzas that got them into the same medical predicament that brought them there. So to prevent that from happening, along with health lectures every day, we gave these folks cooking lessons. Now, this was not to turn them into gourmet chefs. This is basic survival cooking, how to steam vegetables, how to boil rice, how to make oatmeal, how to make salad dressings in your blender. Basic techniques, so when they got home, they could keep this whole food, plant-based food stream going, and so the benefits to their health would continue to accrue. Carl came in with severe psoriatic arthritis. He had big patches, psoriasis on the front of his elbows and his knees, sore, painful joints. He winced every time he moved his arms. He learned how to eat plant-based after staying for a couple of weeks, went home. 14 months later, sent us this picture with a note. Dr. Klaper, not only did I lose the weight, but I lost my psoriasis, my skin is clear, my joints are pain-free. Eli came in with severe asthma. He was using his albuterol inhaler 3-4 times a day, learned how to eat plant-based, went home. 18 months later, sent us this picture with a note. He spent a little time in the gym, obviously, but the note said effectively, Dr. Klaper, not only did I lose the weight, but I lost my asthma, I haven't used my albuterol inhaler in months. Ali came in with severe ulcerative colitis, was passing 2 or 3 bloody stools every day, learned how to eat plant-based. When you change the food, you change the microbes that live in your gut. I'll talk to you about that in a few minutes. And these microbes are much more gentle with the gut wall. The inflammation subsided. His ulcerative colitis cleared. And 20 months later, sent us this picture with a note. The Klaper, not only did I lose the weight, but lost my colitis. I'm having 1 formed stool a day. I remember in the old days before Ozempic, there were these program Weight Watchers and these weight loss programs, and they would show before and after pictures, but there would always be this little crawler of text going on the bottom of the screen, these results not typical. Well, these results are typical. This is what we see. In fact, if these don't happen, we get concerned about what the person's really eating, whether they're sneaking out for cheeseburgers at night. But this is a predictable consequence of eating the diet that our human body was basically designed to run on. We're basically plant-eating hominids. We've got fingers on our hands, not claws. We've got small mouths with flat, grinding molar teeth for chewing up apples and grains. We don't have big fangs. Our jaw joints allow rotary chewing to chew up plant material, unlike the carnivores that have a hinged jaw that just can tear flesh. And the enzymes in our saliva, the very first digestive powers that our foods meet, our saliva has starch digesting enzymes in our saliva. If that is not a message from the universe about what we ought to be eating, it's hard to ignore that. So, now, yes, we can handle small amounts of flesh, and I'm not going to get into, well, we're omnivores. If so, we're omnivores with choice. And we see what a flesh-based diet does to us as far as creating disease in our body. And so you just get these folks on a diet of whole plant foods, and they turn into lean, healthy people with normal blood pressures and normal cholesterols and normal blood sugars. And they get off their medications, and they turn into friends instead of patients. What we were looking at here is a phenomenon that no one mentioned to me in medical school. We're talking about the phenomenon of disease reversal. This is not California woo-woo stuff. We're talking about remission of clinical symptoms, the joints stop hurting, the lungs stop wheezing, and normalization of the laboratory findings. Inflammatory markers come down, the lipid panels come down to normal, and again, they turn into normal, healthy folks. I wish when I was in medical school, someone told me that high blood pressure is reversible. We get the opposite message. They will take these pills the rest of their lives. This is lifetime medication. Nonsense. As these arteries relax and dilate and open up, that blood pressure comes down. Not only can you get them off their high blood pressure pills, you have to get them off before they stand up. Their blood pressure goes to their boots and they pass out on you from low blood pressure. Same thing with the people with type 2 diabetes. Once on insulin, always on insulin, I was told. Nonsense. People with type 2 diabetes, as I will show you, because their insulin receptors are all clogged up with the fat that they're eating. Well, a whole food plant-based diet is naturally low in fats, and you eat that for a few weeks, and your insulin receptors clear out and open up. Your own insulin works fine, and type 2 diabetes goes away. And not only can you get them off their insulin, you have to get them off before they have dangerously low blood sugars. How exciting, what a wonderful age of medicine we have now entered, but it's not generally discussed in medical schools, which is the main mission we are now on, to get this message into the heads of the medical students, as I will show you in a few minutes. So how does this work? What are we looking at? How does a plant-based diet reverse these chronic diseases? I owe you that explanation. You came here to learn something. Let me share the insights that I share with the medical residents and the medical students at the medical schools I lecture at. Now, I won't spend much time belaboring the point that the standard American diet that has devolved into a piece of animal flesh in the middle of the plate with a few overcooked vegetables on the side, but it's a steady stream of meat and dairy and oils and sugars and processed foods flooding through the bloodstream, meal after meal, week after week, month after month, that opens the door to the inflammation and clogged arteries and autoimmune diseases that we deal with. I wish, when I was a medical resident, some attending physician, some chief resident sat me down and said, look, In a minute, you're going out to outpatient clinic. You're going to see this steady stream of patients, overweight, hypertensive, atherosclerotic, insulin resistant, and inflamed. And they want you, doctor, to give them the guidance to change their behavior, to help them regain their health. But you can't give these people any worthwhile advice unless you fully understand why they are sitting in front of you in these bodies. So let's get real about the underlying cause of these maladies. The German philosopher Goethe said, what you know about, you see. What you know about something, you start seeing it everywhere. So what I want to do over this next 45 minutes is to increase your understandings of what you know, so when you then are in the restaurant or in the supermarket deciding what comes in that basket and comes home with you, you'll have a better understanding of what healthy foods are. I wish my chief resident told me, look, if you have a meal of whole plant foods like we are advocating, you have a nice green salad, a bowl of vegetable soup, some steamed green and yellow veggies, no oil stir fry, you have a meal like this. And if an hour later, after you finish that meal, I sneak up on you with a needle and a syringe in my hand, and when you weren't looking, I draw 5 cc's of blood into a glass top tube, let the blood clot, put it into a centrifuge and spin it down. When I pull that tube out, what I would see is a tube that looks like this on the left. The red clot goes to the bottom, the liquid part of the blood, the serum rises up to the top, and the serum should be crystal clear. You can read newsprint through normal serum. It's yellow, but absolutely clear. This is what your blood should look like after you eat a meal, breakfast, lunch, or dinner. But you have a standard Western meal. You have bacon and eggs for breakfast, cheeseburger for lunch, chicken for dinner, dairy during the day. All the saturated fat in the egg yolk, in the bacon fat, in the butter fat and the cheese, in the egg yolk and the mayonnaise, in the chicken fat, all this fat oozes out into the blood. And for the next 5, count them, 5 hours, your blood looks like the tube on the right. This milky appearance is called lipemia. Lipo means fat, emia is in the blood. Lipemia is fat in the blood. Postprandial means after eating. Okay, so this is the fat in the blood after eating. What is this stuff? Chemically, it's mostly triglycerides, saturated fats, and some oxidized cholesterol. It's the fat of the animals the person just ate. Now, I'll admit that not everybody shows the fat this optically densely, but everybody has a wave of fat that goes through your bloodstream after you eat a fatty meal. How can you not? Where is it going to go? And I was serious about that 5-hour number. It's a classic study. They gave someone a fatty meal at hour 0, and they drew blood once an hour for 6 hours. They put those 6 blood tubes one after another into an instrument to measure how fatty the blood is getting. And you can see the blood getting fattier and fattier and fattier and fattier. It takes the liver about 5 hours to begin to clear the fat out of the blood. And during these 5 hours under the curve here, evil things are happening in the bloodstream. Your bad LDL cholesterol is going up. The blood is becoming more viscous, thicker. The saturated fats coat the red blood cells and they start sticking together. And the blood viscosity goes up. It becomes 10W50 motor oil. This thick blood does not deliver oxygen to the tissues as efficiently, but also to force thicker blood through tiny capillary beds takes a higher pressure, and so blood pressure goes up after your blood gets thicker. As the fat goes through the abdominal fat stores, it sticks there, and so obesity goes up. We'll talk about that in type 2 diabetes. The fat works its way into the liver cells, muscle cells, clogs up the insulin receptors, so insulin resistance increases, as does the blood sugar. And the saturated fats are pro-inflammatory. They fan inflammatory reactions throughout the body, and makes me fear for the people who follow the advice of our vaunted Secretary of Health and Human Services, Mr. Kennedy, who has ended the war on saturated fats and wants us to eat full-fat dairy products and 10% cream in our milk. I'm afraid we're all going to find out the hard way that these fats fan inflammation. And understanding now the role that inflammation plays in most every disease, from arthritis to depression, a pro-inflammatory diet, I don't think is going to help our population, to say the least. And we're a wealthy country. Hunger is not tolerated. When people are out and they get hungry at all, they head for the nearest convenience store or restaurant and they eat another fatty meal. Most people are walking around with blood that looks like this all day. Day after day, month after month, year after year. Time is such a powerful factor here that these changes build up over time, as I'll show you. Now, I focus on the fat in the blood because it's the most visibly obvious. But there's more than fat in that blood. You take that bite out of that cheeseburger or out of that pepperoni pizza, and what then flows through every tissue in your body, every cell in your body, is a battalion of molecules that cause disruption on a molecular level in every cell of the body. I call this battalion of molecular marauders the red tide. It's my name for all these mischief-making molecules. I'll quickly go through them. The saturated fats, as I mentioned, set off inflammation. The sugars in the cola drinks and the candies and the ketchup and the white flour buns stick to proteins all over the body. They stiffen, they break. Fragments of animal muscle get into the bloodstream and set off immune reactions throughout the body. It's a high salt diet. There's salt in the cheese, salt in the meat, salt in the fries, salt in the chips. All this salt not only stiffens the arteries, raises our blood pressure, but it opens the door to autoimmune diseases like lupus. Nobody eats raw meat. The very act of grilling the burgers, broiling the steaks, frying the chicken. I'm going to sit down here. The very act of cooking the meat inevitably rips electrons off the animal muscle, and it creates these things called free radicals. These are atoms that are missing an electron. And so they will rip an electron to balance their electrical charge off any molecule, including your DNA, your cell membranes. Advanced glycation end products. These are, when you cook animal muscle, you create these bastardized proteins that stiffen your arteries, disrupt your collagen molecules, and they age your tissues, hence the acronym. Emulsifiers keep the ice cream soft in your mouth, but they also dissolve the mucus lining your intestinal tract, and that increases the permeability, the leaky gut phenomenon that allows food protein to leak into the bloodstream. Again, cooking the animal muscle oxidizes the cholesterol. We'll talk about we'll get to the microplastics in a minute. These are all these molecules can all do damage, and you can do this from vegan junk foods, from vegan donuts and cupcakes and cola drinks. Just because you're vegan doesn't mean you're eating healthy. That's why we prefer the term whole food plant-based. But these can all be done off plant-based food stuff. But once you add meat to the diet, you've added a whole new tier of problematic molecules. Endotoxin comes from the slaughterhouse bacteria. Every cutting surface in the meatpacking plant has a thin layer of microbes from the animal's guts. You can take a culture tube, swipe any cutting surface in the slaughterhouse, and you'll get a luxurious growth Salmonella, E. coli, Pseudomonas, Enterococcus bacteria. Every steak and chop that leaves the meat packing plant has a coating of these bacteria. In the meat case in your supermarket, the ultraviolet light shines down, kills the bacteria, and when the bacteria die, their cell walls break apart and turn into this molecule called endotoxin. Nasty stuff, endotoxin. Makes your blood clot, depresses heart muscle function, and makes your gut leaky, increases the entrance of inflammatory proteins into your bloodstream. And endotoxin is heat stable. Grilling the burger does not get rid of the endotoxin. Trimethylamine oxide, I won't make your eyes glaze over, but trimethylamine oxide is generated by the bacteria in the gut, summoned up by a meat and egg diet. And these bacteria create this stuff, trimethylamine oxide, that drives cholesterol into the artery walls and prevents its removal. Inevitably, cooking animal muscle at high heat creates cancer-causing molecules that smear on the stomach lining, giving gastric cancers, smear on the colon wall, giving GI cancers. When all the protein, we're in the era of high protein diets, well, proteins are made of amino acids. And when people eat a lot of meat, all those amino acids flush up into the liver, and the liver responds. The liver thinks, ooh, building block, amino acid building blocks, let's build something with them. And the liver responds by putting out a surge of insulin-like growth factor 1. It's one of the most powerful growth-promoting hormones in the body. And it's great if you're a growing boy or a girl, it's great to have a lot of IGF-1 in your body. But if you are an adult woman with an early breast cancer, or you're a guy with a big prostate and some malignant cells in there, the last thing you want is a diet that makes you walk around with high IGF-1 levels, but that's what a meat-based diet does. Heme iron makes red meat red. It's an oxidizing agent. It increases the risk of strokes and cancer, so I don't have time to go into the chemistry of it. The animal feedlot are fed bushels of grains that are sprayed with herbicides and pesticides. They drink water with arsenic and cadmium and mercury in it. They are given hormones and antibiotics as growth promoters. All these substances accumulate in the animal's flesh. So when you bite into that finger-licking good drumstick or that juicy burger, you're getting all the concentrated toxins that animal ate during its life. When you cook fats at high temperature, and all the meats have a significant amount of fats, so they taste better, you oxidize these fats with a flame, and you generate reactive aldehydes. What's that? Don't worry about the chemistry. The point is that these are mutagenic. They damage your genes. You're just having a lunch. You're just eating a ham sandwich. You want to be damaging your DNA, but that's what happens if you're eating cooked meat. You're sending mutagenic aldehydes through your tissues. And New-5-GC, this is a sialic acid that only animals make, and it sets off inflammatory reactions throughout the body. And our carnivore friends and our paleo friends and our keto friends are giving themselves a shot of New-5-GC 3 times a day. And again, that sets the inflammatory fire burning in their tissues. These are just some of the toxins that come in with every meat-based meal. Now, I know a lot of folks say, well, I don't eat like that. I don't eat all the junk foods. I never go to McDonald's. I eat skinless breasts of chicken. I take the skin off. I just eat wild-caught salmon and lean beef. Yeah, but again, kid yourself not. I'm very active cooking the animal muscle. Is going to create advanced glycation end products and carcinogens. There'll be endotoxin. And the antibiotics the chicken was fed will still be there. And bringing a chicken carcass into your kitchen is a great way to seed all your cutting boards with salmonella and E. coli. The fish are now swimming in an ocean filled with dioxins and mercury and polychlorinated biphenyls and microplastics. The ocean is now awash, if you will, in microplastics. These are all from the massive amount of plastic bags and utensils floating in the ocean but also from the commercial fishing fleets that use these 10-mile-long nets made of polyethylene, polypropylene, plastics. And when these nets get dirty or tangled, instead of untangling them and cleaning them up, the fishermen, they just cut them loose and let them drift away. Well, Mother Nature is not done with those nets. The hot tropical sun beats down on them, the plastics age, the tropical waves and storms break them up into smaller pieces and smaller pieces and smaller pieces. And eventually those pieces get so small that they're ingested by the small fish, the sardines and the anchovies, which are eaten by the larger fish, and the predator fish, and the tuna and the salmon. And these microplastics, nanometers long, wind up in the fish. People eat the fish. These plastic particles get into the arteries, they get into our brains. We don't know what effects they have in the body yet, but I'm sure nothing good will come of them because we have no enzymes to break down plastics. So whether they cause cancers or birth defects or blood clots, don't know yet. The story's still unfolding. Now, people say, well, I don't eat fish, so I'm okay. Doesn't quite work like that. Because it turns out that only half of the commercial fish catch is sold in restaurants and supermarkets as fish for people to eat. Half the commercial fish catch is ground up and added to animal feed as a protein extender. So the fish meal is added to cattle feed and pig feed and chicken feed, which is then eaten by the cows and the pigs and the chickens. And so the microplastics find their way into the beef and into the other flesh foods. Welcome to dining in the 21st century. This red tide, it's a fatty tide, it's a salty tide, it's a sugary tide, it sends off immune reactions, it's full of acids, it's from phosphates and sulfates, it damages your genes, sets off cancers, clogs your arteries, increases inflammation, disrupts enzyme reactions throughout the body. Now, if you put the wrong fuel into your gasoline burning engine, if you put diesel fuel, which is kerosene, into your gasoline burning engine, you will find that kerosene is not burned cleanly, and you can't be shocked when black smoke comes out of the exhaust and the spark plugs kick up with carbon and your catalytic converter is destroyed. Wrong fuel. The engine's not designed to run on it. Well, if you feed our plant-eating hominid body the diet of the mountain lion, you pack our intestines full of meat 2-3 times a day, as the carnivore folks are telling you should be doing, and the paleo folks, well, you're putting the wrong fuel into our metabolic engine. And as I tell the residents, you can't be shocked when you open the door in the medical clinic and you see the man with the clogged arteries suffering angina chest pain, the woman with the asthma pulling on her inhaler, the man with the type 2 diabetes injecting insulin, the woman with the acne-scarred skin from the dairy products. Google dairy and acne and you'll see the connection there. These food materials cause real live diseases in real live people. Now, I will grant, of course, that yes, genetics plays a powerful role here, and yes, the environment certainly does, and stress levels, yes, they all play a role. But it's the food flushing through every cell, every tissue in your body 3 times a day that has by far, whether our medical colleagues choose to admit it or not, that has by far the greatest shaping influence on the health or disease in our bodies. Food effects over time equal the health effects. So I tell the young doctors, there comes that day when the patient is getting out of the shower and they catch a glimpse of themselves in the bathroom mirror and they don't like what they see. They don't like their big protuberant abdomen, they don't like their sore swollen joints, they don't like their medicine cabinet full of pills, and that voice in their head says, I gotta change something, I can't keep doing this. And so they wind up in your office, doctor, with a fervent plea. They are begging you, doctor, please tell me what I need to do to get my health back. If the man who has his health has 1,000 dreams, and 1,000 wishes. The man who's lost his health has only one wish, and that's to get their health back. Without health, you got nothing. So I tell my young medical students, what can you tell this man that will give them the most benefit? In my humble opinion, the best, most effective advice any doctor can give this kind of patient is, to the greatest extent possible, start consuming a food stream of whole plant foods. Now, those of you who already do this is old hat to you. But for those of you who are totally new to this, and say, well, okay, well, how do I even begin? I'll show you a slide now with some resources. I'll show you this again at the end of the slideshow if you want to take a picture of it. But there are some wonderful resources available. If you've not seen a film called Forks Over Knives, please go to that website, forksoverknives.com. You will see a video there where you'll see people with these diseases eating a plant-based diet under the supervision of very wise physicians, and you see them right on the screen get leaner and healthier and stopping their medications and turning into normal, healthy people. It's a great video. Then go to the top of the webpage and you'll see no end of recipes and food plans and transition programs. So great resource here. There's some great books to read. I really love this skinny little book by Rachel Brown called For Fork's Sake. And it's a skinny book, you can read it in an afternoon. And she takes you by the hand, it's a primer on plant-based eating. She takes you shopping, here's what you need at home for a couple of good breakfasts, lunches, and dinners. So she makes it really easy, similar with a plant-based diet for beginners. And if you need some personal help, there's some wonderful jumpstart programs where people will send you messages every day in your inbox. They'll have live webinars to help you get started. Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine has a good 21-day kickstart. Rochester Lifestyle Medicine has a great 15-day jumpstart, which is free to doctors and medical students. I'll show you that in a minute. So you'll see the slide at the end if you want to see it again. So how does this all work? I owe you that explanation. So let's have a look at the realities of the science behind it. So many people make this transition gradually. They slowly phase the meat and dairy out of their diet. Great. As long as they keep moving that direction, that's fine. And they may need to just start having one plant-based breakfast every week. And then they add in a plant-based lunch, a soup and a salad and a sandwich once a week. And then one plant-based dinner, pasta with vegetables and mushrooms instead of meatballs. You can gradually do it. But many people do it all at once. They say, Doc, I am done with eating the animals that flood the red tide. These are the red tide marauders that flood my tissues with red tide toxins. I'm done with eating dead animals. And I have them do the plastic garbage bag commando move. And I have them take a plastic garbage bag and say, open up your fridge. Have an honest look in there. And the cold cuts in the bag, and the eggs, and the dairy, and the salad dressings, and the mayonnaise, and the steaks you're going to grill tomorrow now, all that in the bag. And then look up at your pantry shelf, and the cookies, and the cakes, and the crackers, and the chips, and the schnips, and the bips in the bag. And say, close the bag. Think, who do I like the least? Give it to them, give it to the food bank. Get it out of your house. As Chef AJ says, if it's in my house, it's in my mouth. And so don't even deal with the temptation. There's two areas in your life, two moments in your life when you've got great power to make yourself healthier. And one is when you are pushing that shopping cart down the supermarket aisle, deciding what goes in that basket, what you're going to pay for with your hard-earned money, and what you're going to bring home with you. And if you don't put the junky meat, dairy, sugars, all that junk in the basket, you won't have to deal with the temptation when you get home. So smart shopping is a point of power that I urge you to take advantage of. That other moment of power is when you're sitting in the restaurant with that menu in front of you. Every time you look up the waitress or the wait person and say, I'll have the beef, I'll have the chicken, I'll have the veal. Every time you say those words, your body gets a little more inflamed, but your children and your grandchildren's world gets a little hotter, a little drier, a little deader. We can't keep doing what we've been doing. So those are 2 points where you've got power. People say, what can I do? Take advantage of those 2 power moments. So let's say the person's done. The doc, I'm sitting in front of you and I've done what I need to do. I've cleaned out all the animal stuff out of my fridge and my pantry. I've gone shopping. My fridge is full of produce. My pantry's full of bulk beans and quinoa. Tell me, where do I go from here? And he knows, because he's read the books, that he's going to start a steady stream of soups and salads and steamed veggies and chilies and curries, all that lovely food. As soon as they make that plant-based transition, here's what happens. Here's the tofu of the talk. The most important change that happens is the red tide. Don't make me come over there. I'm coming over there. Okay. The red tide stops. There is respite from the red tide. Every cell in your body on the DNA strand has instructions for how to repair damage to the cell membranes, to the nucleus, to the chromosomes. Do you know that on every DNA strand, in every cell in your body, you have globular proteins called DNA editing enzymes that spend all day going up and down your DNA strands looking for damaged nucleotides. And if they find them, they fix them. They don't ask your permission. They're constantly repairing your DNA 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. When I first read about that in the physiology book, I put the book down and I applauded. I mean, that is brilliant that we have that mechanism. But these repair mechanisms cannot function optimally if every 4 hours there's a tide, a surge of advanced lactation end products and high fructose corn syrup and oxidized protein. If the red tide is sloshing through your cells every 4 hours, these repair mechanisms cannot function optimally. Well, now they can. And your cells start getting healthier, cell by cell, minute by minute. And the most magic is produced because these molecular marauders are now replaced by an entirely different set of molecules that with every salad, every bowl of vegetable soup, every helping of broccoli, floods the tissues with these remarkable plant-based nutrients. First of all, it's a high water content diet. All the soups and the salads and the steamed veggies and the fruits are full of water. And as the water is added to the bloodstream, the blood becomes less viscous. Is far more free-flowing. In fact, studies have shown that people who exclude meats entirely have significantly lower blood viscosity. It is measurable. And so blood viscosity goes down, and there's a surge now of more free-flowing blood delivering oxygen and nutrients to tissues throughout the body, to your brain, to your heart, your lungs, your kidneys. Now, along with the more free-flowing blood, along with the more free-flowing blood, the green vegetables you're now eating creates the production of a molecule called nitric oxide in the walls of the arteries. And nitric oxide heals the artery walls, but it also causes a very subtle dilation of the artery walls. The nitric oxide is produced on the inner lining here, works its way into the muscular layer, and the muscular layer relaxes. And there's a very subtle dilation of arteries throughout the body. You've got 20,000 miles of arterioles throughout your body, and they dilate just a little bit, a fraction of a millimeter. But that's a very important little bit of dilation because of a law in physics called Poiseuille's law. Poiseuille's law says that the amount of liquid flowing through a tube, and that includes blood flowing through an artery, but the volume of liquid flowing through a tube will increase, the amount of liquid will increase as the tube dilates. And as it gets wider, the volume of liquid will increase in a very specific way by the fourth power of the increase of the radius. What does that mean? It means that if the blood vessel in radius goes up by a factor of 2, the blood flowing through that artery does not go up by a factor of 2. It goes up by a factor of 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, goes up by a factor of 16. And you know this from the real world. If you're trying to suck a liquid up through a skinny straw, a straw twice the diameter means a whole lot more liquid comes up for a whole lot less suction. That's Poiseuille's law. Well, that now takes hold in arteries all over your body. So now there's a surge of this more free-flowing, oxygenated blood flowing through all the capillary beds in the brain, heart, muscles, lungs, and kidneys. That is a huge benefit. When you pull the animal flesh out of the diet, you're pulling out a molecule called arachidonic acid. And this is the main driver of inflammation in the body. Now you pulled that out. Now all the fats in the diet are coming from plant oils, many of which are in the omega-3 category, that have an anti-inflammatory effect. So with that one move, going from an animal-based food stream to a plant-based food stream, you've changed the inflammatory balance in tissues throughout the body from a pro-inflammatory to an anti-inflammatory. That is huge, knowing what we know about inflammation. If you've been eating the standard diet with fried foods and sugars and processing chemicals, your tissues have a lot of these free radicals that are, the initials are ROS for reactive oxygen species. But these are the free radicals that are missing an electron, and they're like molecular terrorists. They'll rip electrons off your DNA, off your cell membranes. The colorful fruits and vegetables you're now eating are colorful because they're filled with molecules from the polyphenol family that are antioxidant. They quench free radicals. So as they surge through your tissues, they quench the free radicals that are causing oxidative damage and thus age your tissues. Now those free radicals are quenched, and it has a profound anti-aging effect. You really slow down tissue aging with these foods. If you change the food flowing through the intestine, you're going to change the microbes that live in that intestine. If you are eating the standard diet with meat and dairy products, you are promoting the growth of some really pathogenic organisms and nasty bacteria in your gut from the Firmicutes family, not friendly critters. And their byproducts set off inflammation. They promote colon cancers. Well, and you pull the meat and dairy out. Now all the food going through the GI tract is from plant origin, and it's filled with fiber and resistant starches from the legumes, and that promotes microbes from the Prevotella family, much more gentle folks as far as critters go in your gut. And these not only help heal the intestinal wall, decrease leaky gut syndrome, but also these microbes happen to produce chemicals that make you feel good. The byproducts of these microbes are dopamine and serotonin and norepinephrine and oxytocin. These are feel-good chemicals that work their way into your brain, up the vagus nerve and through the circulatory system. And I've had many people say, you know, doctor, ever since I changed my plant-based, I'm feeling more positive. I'm feeling generally happier. That is not a placebo effect. That's a gift from your refurbished microbiome. Yeah. Time for a new slide advance here. Okay, well, I guess I'll get my 10,000 steps in today. When you stop eating other animals' cholesterol, your own blood cholesterol is going to get better and less atherogenic. Your skin oils will change. The skin oils largely depend on the fats in your diet. And if you're eating animal fats, those fats work their way into the skin oils, they oxidize, and they leave guys smelling like the Green Bay Packer locker room at halftime. Well, as people go plant-based, now all the fats are coming from plant oils. And I've had guys say, hey, doc, ever since we went plant-based, my wife says I don't stink anymore. Yeah, that's true. Another gift from the plant-based diet. Hormone levels change. This is really important. Most people don't realize that the cows in the dairy from which the milk and the cheese are made, they're all pregnant. Didn't used to be that way. When I was a kid on my uncle's farm in Wisconsin, when a cow became fertile, we'd lock her up in the stanchion and call the man from Badger Breeders. He'd come and he'd take this big long tube of bull semen and ram it through her vagina up into her uterus, squeeze the bulb, and a glob of bull semen would come out and in her uterus, and she would conceive her next calf. And if she had been giving milk, she'd stop lactating. Pregnant mammals generally don't lactate. There's a good biological reason for that. And that's just the way it was on the farm in the 1950s. And I remember my uncle pulling out his little notebook, oh, bossy number 17, won't give milk till she has her calf in the spring. And that's just the way it was. He had to accept the biology. We had 49 cows. Well, today's modern dairy operations, they're milking 1,000 cows twice a day. They can't afford to have their best milkers go offline for 9 months while they're carrying their next calf. So they've genetically modified the cows, in the American dairy herd and the Canadian and the UK. And so the dairy herds have been genetically modified, so they will continue to give milk even though they're pregnant with their next calf. So the milk that is now produced in dairies is sucked off large pregnant bovines. Well, ask any woman who's been pregnant. When you're pregnant, your whole body is filled with estrogens, makes your hair luxurious, makes your breasts large, and it gets into the milk. And today's dairy products are made from milk filled with estrogens. And these are not the puny little phytoestrogens in soy. These are official mammalian estrogen. This is estrone, estradiol, estriol, pregnanediol, progesterone. These are official mammalian estrogens. And they are active in the body. They give women breast lumps. They give guys unstable prostate that increase their prostate cancer risk. The more dairy a boy eats, the higher his risk of prostate cancer when he's an adult man. Well, do you really want to be pouring that white liquid full of estrogens and leukemia viruses? The American dairy herd is infected with bovine leukemia viruses. Do you really want to be pouring that on your cereal in the morning? I tell my patients who use dairy products to go into the bathroom, have a look in the mirror. I ask them, have a look at your face. Do you have a long snout with whiskers? Do you have big ears? Are you a baby calf? If you are a baby calf, cool, enjoy your yogurt, enjoy your ice cream. But if you're not a baby calf, consider, do you really want to be pouring baby calf growth fluid on your cereal in the morning or eat cheese made from it? And nowadays, there's so many good plant-based alternatives in the supermarket. The plant-based milks and cheeses and ice creams and yogurts. You don't want to be pouring baby calf growth fluid on your cereal or eating cheese made from it. Besides, cheese is fermented, congealed butter fat filled with estrogens, and it smells like dirty socks. Kidney function is an important consideration. We're in the era of high protein diets. I'm a bodybuilder. I need 200 grams of protein every day, protein. And they think that by eating all this protein, they're going to go right to their muscles and make them rip and fit. That's like eating brains and expect to get smarter. And they think that's all the protein is doing. Well, it's not. And the fact is, not only, as I mentioned, when the protein hits your liver, the liver responds with that insulin-like growth factor 1 surge. Well, when all these amino acids from the meat hit your kidneys, it hurts your kidneys. It forces the kidneys to go into a state of what's called hyperfiltration. And the glomerular membranes that do the filtering of your blood, they thicken, they become less efficient, and you keep them in that state month after month. It buys you a ticket to the dialysis machine. So I have concerns about these high protein diets. The asthmatic folks wheeze less because their lung mucus is less viscous, and white blood cell counts come down naturally because they're not priming their bone marrow with endotoxin 3 times a day. The change is so profound, and these are just some of the changes that happen in tissues throughout the body, that if someone asks me, doctor, in a word, what changes when you change the food stream from a plant-based food stream to an animal-based food stream? Let's try that again. What changes in your body when you change the food stream from an animal-based food stream to a plant-based food stream? What changes in the body? Everything changes. Everything changes. The blood's more free-flowing, it's less inflammatory, less oxidizing. The microbiome in your gut is different, your neurochemistry is different, your lipids are different, your hormones are different, your kidneys are different. Everything changes in the body, and it's these changes that permit these wonderful changes that we see in these people's bodies. And that's why we can full-throatedly, wholeheartedly recommend people adopt a whole food plant-based diet, because we know the physiology that is being changed in their body is a positive one, and they're going to benefit from it. So you should know, you should feel confident about adopting a plant-based diet, and you can proudly, you don't have to shuffle your feet and look down when your neighbors ask you, why are you eating plant-based foods only? Because you know this is what it's doing in your body.
Getting sore. Yeah.
Now, I will grant that the other pillars of lifestyle medicine are important. You got to get enough exercise every day, manage your stress, get enough sleep, and not be drinking alcohol and smoking cigarettes. Yes, those are all important. But it's the food that brings beneficial changes to every one of these organ systems. I could spend 2 lectures just going through the benefits to each organ system on a whole food plant-based diet. But can you get enough protein? Absolutely. Mother Nature especially loaded the legumes, beans, peas, chickpeas, lentils, anything in a pod is a legume. They are filled with protein, as are whole grains, vegetables. There's plenty of protein in the plant kingdom. In fact, if you eat 3 meals of whole plant foods a day, get your 2,500 calories in, you can't help but get 80 grams of high-grade protein. Now, you've got to do this on whole plant foods. You can't do it on granola bars and energy drinks. We're talking about whole plant foods. But if you do, it's going to be fully nourishing. Now, let me talk about 2 diseases in particular that respond to this change. The first is the biggest killer in America today, clogged arteries. Every day in this country, fellow Americans grab their chests, fall over with a heart attack, and die. Because an atherosclerotic plaque in the arteries of their heart is torn open and set off a blood clot, which stops the blood flow to the heart muscle downstream. That heart muscle dies. becomes electrically unstable, they go into ventricular fibrillation, and the person dies. 380,000 times a year in this country, this avoidable fate befalls our fellow Americans. Now, if you ask the cardiologists about this disease, the two words you'll frequently hear, this is relentlessly progressive. Man, once they get these plaques, nothing's going to stop it. They're all going to need stents. They're all going to need bypasses. That's right, doctor. If you don't talk to them about what they're eating, that's what you're going to see. But it doesn't have to be that way. And Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, through his research and studies, has made it very clear this is a reversible disease. Without making your eyes glaze over, this is the wall of the artery here. And when one goes, Dr. Esselstyn's program is a completely plant-based one. So the red tide stops. And so the red dots that were under here, they stop. That's the oxidized cholesterol. And that's what Dr. Esselstyn wants you to eat some dark green vegetables, some broccoli or kale, 3-4 times a day. Why? Because those whole plant foods in your intestine acts like time release capsules that are just steadily releasing antioxidants in your bloodstream 24/7. And as the weeks go by, those antioxidants work their way into the plaques of the arteries, neutralize the free radicals, the plaques start breaking apart, and as a result, the plaques the plaques get smaller and smaller and smaller. The damaged endothelial lining gets repaired, not by magic, but because the bone marrow is constantly putting out showers of stem cells that reupholster the inner lining of arteries throughout the body. And as a result, you get dramatic improvements like this. This is a man's artery in his heart, left anterior descending. It's filled with angiography dye. The whole artery should be this wide all the way down. But this rat-eaten portion here, these are atherosclerotic plaques encroaching into the blood flow channel. And this man had severe angina, had severe chest pain whenever he walked. The blood was not reaching the lower part of his heart. He did not want to go on statins. There was no place to put stents in. So he went on Dr. Esselstyn's program, and 29 months of healthy, clean blood flowing through these arteries melts away the plaques, and this artery turns into this artery. Same patient, same artery, but you can see how reversible and potentially this disease really is. This is a heart muscle scan. Red is good blood flow. You can see how choked down the man's blood supply is to the heart. Went on a plant-based diet for just 2 weeks, but the plaques melt away a little bit. The heart muscle gets healthier. Poiseuille's law kicks in. A little dilation happens. There's a surge of free-flowing blood pouring through the arteries of the heart, and this scan turns into this scan within 2 weeks. Arteries all over the body open up, much to the delight of people at home. I'm sure this woman is delighted that his retinal arteries are delivering more blood to his eyeballs. Now, I always get some cardiologists in the back of the room with their arms folded, shaking their head. Yeah, that's all nice, doc, but I don't know anything about nutrition. I don't have time to talk to patients about their diet. It's easier for me to give them a prescription for statins, give them a shot of Repatha, knock down their cholesterol numbers. Don't bother me with this nutrition stuff. And those drugs work. And you absolutely can pound down those cholesterol numbers with these drugs. But what do you wind up with? A patient who says, oh boy, my cholesterol is 110. I can have all the bacon and cheeseburgers that I want because I got low cholesterol now. And what you've done is seduce this patient into the same pitfall that the folks who follow the paleo philosophy fall into. You're giving this man permission to shovel animal flesh into his intestines 3 times a day. In my book, That's a recipe for an epidemic of colon cancer from all the carcinogens that are going to be smearing on his gut wall 3 times a day. They're going to get heart attacks and strokes from all the oxidized cholesterol and TMAO that's being generated. All the endotoxin in the meat is going to give them leaky gut. They're going to get lupus and autoimmune diseases. All the fat that they're eating, it's a high-fat diet because they don't like carbohydrates. It's a high-fat diet. Well, they're going to clog up their insulin receptors, as I'll show you in a minute. They're going to get type 2 diabetes. The bacteria they're going to spawn in their gut wall from the meat-based diet is going to give them Crohn's disease and colitis. And the arteries in their brain are going to get inflamed and clogged up. They're going to get vascular dementia. This is a diet of death. Now, these are chronic diseases, and it takes years for them to develop. And in the meantime, these folks, many of them, when they go to a paleo diet or a carnivore diet, they experience some initial improvements because they stopped eating white bread, they stopped eating processed foods, they've stopped eating junky sugars, and as a result, they lose weight. And the weight loss alone will improve their insulin resistance problems. It will help their lipids. It will make them feel generally better. But I say, do not be seduced by these early changes. It may take 5 years or 8 years. But it's inevitable that these diseases are cooking in their tissues meal after meal. And I predict, I'll put a $100 bill on the table, that within 72 months, the medical journals are going to be erupting with articles. Carnivore diet shows increased colon cancer. Paleo diet shows increased vascular dementia. Keto diet shows increased autoimmune disease. And my right eyebrow will not go up this much. Yep, that's right. That's what's going to happen. And these doctors pushing carnivore diets and paleo diets are going to be the sorriest doctors in town. And we're trying to reach them to have them have an honest look about what they're really advocating. Obesity is a major problem in America today. And we're in the age of Ozempic and Wegovy and all these GLP-1 drugs. They are powerful drugs, and they work. And people get an initial significant weight loss. But there's 2 issues as far as I can see. One, of course, is that they're expensive and they have side effects, inhibiting stomach emptying and background nausea, etc. But people are afraid to come off of them because they're afraid if I stop taking the drug, the weight's going to come back. And that's right. If they keep eating cheeseburgers and pepperoni pizzas, that's exactly what's going to happen. But it doesn't have to be that way and what we're advocating is while you're on these drugs, and no pressure to come off of them, but eventually you're going to want to, because they stop working after a while. People experience a significant weight loss, and then the weight loss plateaus out, and they stop losing weight. And a lot of them stop the drug for lots of reasons. About 80% of people within a year stop the drugs on their own. But they're afraid that the weight's going to come back, which it will if you keep eating the standard American diet. But we say while you're on these drugs, take advantage of them and use this time to learn how to transition to a plant-based diet so when you finally taper off the drugs, the weight doesn't come back. And in fact, if you have more weight to lose, the weight loss will continue, as we saw from the folks at True North. So I don't wag my finger at you, oh, you're on GLP-1, fine. But use the time to learn how to eat healthy. Type 2 diabetes is a common problem. And when people hear that word diabetes, the first word that comes to mind, sugar, oh, bad sugar, too much carb, oh, it's a bad carbs, stop eating, get on a low-carb diet, oh, bad carbs, raising your blood sugar. To which I say, you've got it backwards. The carbs are not the problem. They're not the cause of the disease. The problem is the fat in the diet. If you're eating a standard Western diet and you're keeping your blood fatty all day, the fat works its way into your muscle cells and into your liver cells. And like all cells in your body, these cells burn sugar. They burn glucose as their primary fuel. So when glucose shows up in the bloodstream after you eat an apple, the pancreas puts out insulin and engages the insulin receptors, which sends a message to the cell membrane saying, let the glucose in so we can burn it in the mitochondria for energy. That's the way it's supposed to work. But if you've been eating, if you've loaded up your tissues with fat, then what happens is that the fat inhibits the enzymes that lets the sugar into the blood, so the sugar piles up in the bloodstream. This is not theoretical. This fat in the muscle cells, here's what it looks like under the light microscope. This is muscle tissue, and this black stuff is intramyocellular lipid. This is fat in the muscle cell. Intra means inside, myo is muscle, cell is cellular. This is fat in the muscle cell. It doesn't belong there. Here it is under the electron microscope. And it's now clearly being recognized that intramyocellular lipid is the main driving force of insulin resistance. So the high sugars are the tail of the dog, okay? They're not the cause of the problem, they're the result of clogging up your insulin receptors with fat. Now, if the person also happens to be overweight or obese and has a lot of fat in their abdominal cavity, that adds another layer of insulin resistance because the fat in the abdomen is not inert. It's all day is pumping out inflammatory molecules, inflammatory cytokines like interleukin 1, interleukin 6, and these molecules interfere with insulin receptors on the outside. So no wonder so many obese people develop type 2 diabetes. Their insulin receptors are clogged up on the inside by the intramyocellular lipid and interfered with on the outside from the inflammatory cytokines in their abdomen. So of course they develop type 2 diabetes. More insulin, that's not the answer. What they really need to do is change to a whole food plant-based diet which is naturally low in fats. And as the weeks go by on this lower fat diet, the cells in the liver, the muscles are looking for energy. That, hey, we've already got lots of energy inside the cells in this fat. Let's burn that for energy. So the intramyocellular lipid is burned for energy. As the abdominal obesity recedes, the cytokines disappear. And as a result, the person's own insulin starts working fine, and the type 2 diabetes goes away. It's a reversible disease. And there are now studies clearly demonstrating the reversibility of type 2 diabetes. And when you compare people on plant-based diet with the American Diabetes Association, which allows meat and dairy, the folks on the plant-based diet, their blood sugars are better, they lose more body weight, their lipids improve more, they leak less protein out through their kidneys. It heals. It's a definitive treatment to reverse diabetes. You probably know a lot more about this disease than your family doctor does if all they're doing is raising your insulin levels. It's a reversible disease, and you should work with your doctor and say, would you help me reverse my type 2 diabetes? That is what every doctor should be hearing from their patients with that condition. The red tide is not gentle with the gut wall as it sluices through the intestinal tract filled with these toxic molecules. And the red tide marauders inflame the gut wall here, setting off ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. Well, again, change the food going through the gut, and you will change the inflammation. You change the microbes in the gut, and it turns out to be the first step in putting Crohn's disease into remission. The asthmatic folks gain the benefits of the plant-based diet, and their lungs become less inflamed. They stop wheezing as much. They use less inhaler. I'm getting to the end, folks. People get more restless. People with autoimmune diseases also benefit, as Dr. Brooke Goldner shares her method for reversing autoimmune disease. She put her own lupus into remission with a plant-based diet. So where are doctors supposed to learn about this? I'm going to the medical schools and talking to the medical students, and I want to reach them before pharmacosclerosis sets into their brains, and they think that drugs and surgery are the only treatment. I tell them, listen, there's good resources for you. There are textbooks on plant-based clinical nutrition that they should get and read. Plantrition University has a whole panoply of video courses free for the taking, free for the asking to all medical professionals. Sorry. Oh, this is going to get recycled as soon as I get home. This piece of... Again, any healthcare professional can download any of these courses that talk about plant-based nutrition and all the various life stages. University of Winchester offers a great plant-based course online. There's disease reversal is so common now, there's a medical journal devoted to it, the International Journal of Disease Reversal. It's a free journal, anybody can subscribe to it. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine is very pro-plant-based. They offer courses, so there's plenty of education for the doctors to get. Now the doctors, when I talk to them, say, listen, I don't know anything about nutrition. I don't get paid to do this counseling. I don't have time to do this counseling. The message for them is, doctor, you don't have to. There's getting to be more and more plant-based professionals who are happy to do this counseling for you. Seek and ye shall find. Every city I go to, whether it's in Milwaukee and Houston and Atlanta and Miami, there's plant-based dietitians everywhere. And what I'm proposing to the medical students and the young doctors is a new model of medical practice. And that is to bring the plant-based dietitian onto your primary treatment team. And so when you see the patient in the office for the first time, practice good medicine. Take a medical history, do your physical exam, order your labs, get a diagnosis. Get them on medications if you need to. But before you let that patient out of your office, you hand them the contact information for a plant-based dietitian. She doesn't have to be in your same city, just anywhere in the same state where she has a license. And say, here's the contact info for Ms. Jones. I want you to contact her, arrange a telemedicine consultation with her. She's going to talk to you about what to eat. She's going to give you a handout. She's going to show you videos to watch. You eat plant-based like she's telling you. You come back and see me in a month. Let's see if you're not leaner and healthier. We'll talk about getting you off these medications you're on. I say, this is how medicine should be practiced in the 21st century. If the doctor doesn't do that, they are condemning themselves to be the medical equivalent of the blind men and the elephant, where every specialist is in their cubicle treating what they think are different diseases. The cardiologist treating the clogged arteries, the gastroenterologist is treating the Crohn's disease, the endocrinologist treating diabetes. They think they're different diseases, but the truth is they're all treating the same problem. That's what their patients are eating. And the tragedy is if they don't understand that, they miss the chance of helping their patients eat a plant-based diet and thus reversing these diseases. Now, coming down the home stretch here, people say, yeah, but it's expensive to eat this way. It's expensive eating. To which I say, this is a myth. Because the reality is that the staple foods that provide the most calories and protein, the beans and rice and potatoes, these, when you buy them in bulk, they're cheap. Rice is cheap, potatoes are cheap. You can buy a 10-pound bag of rice for a little over $6.50, 10 pounds of lentils cost a little over $12, 2 cups of rice, 2 cups of lentils, give you almost 50 grams of protein for less than $20 a month. It's easy to get it up, especially to make these big batch stews and soups. You can eat off them for 3 days and freeze the rest for meals later when you don't want to cook. A little love goes a long way to help people make their transition. So I tell the doctors, this is a report from the front lines. of a scout who's been fighting the battle for decades, reporting back to the reinforcements, the young doctors just coming into the battle here. And the message I want to give them, it's the food. It's been the food all along. And the two-fold message that I want to deliver, one, these are versatile diseases, and a plant-predominant diet is the key. Do you have to be 100% vegan? No. But I'd rather they get their meat eating down to once or twice a week than 2-3 times a day. So in order to get this message into the heads and hearts of young doctors, our nonprofit organization, Moving Medicine Forward, has me going to the medical schools of the country and giving this presentation about what I wish I learned in medical school, and to open their minds and hearts into the power that a plant-based diet will give them to truly make their patients healthy. I have my slide presentation of them. My last slide is, you want to heal these patients, or you just want to manage their chronic disease? Why are you going into medicine? If it's just to manage their diabetes or manage your high blood pressure, you'll leave medicine. It's a dismal way to practice medicine. They're all going to get the heart attacks and stroke. You want to heal these patients and get real about why they're sitting in front of you in those bodies and what the real cure for their conditions are. Well, to that end, someone says, this is all very good, doctor. You should put this into a book. And so with many mornings at 4 in the morning in front of my computer there, we did that. And as a result, we created Moving Medicine Forward. And this is a book for both doctors and patients. And for the doctors, chapter 7 is a day in the disease reversal clinic. And I give them a template how a doctor can actually work to reverse these diseases. I tell the medical students it's the most powerful clinical tool you will ever wield. And to give them a template on how they can, because the truth is every family practice should be a disease reversal practice. And for the patients, it explains what the red tide does, what a plant-based diet does in their bodies, and how they can take advantage of it, and they know what questions to ask their doctor, so they can both work together to get that patient truly healthy. So, with that, it's a great gift. It's now available in bookstores on Amazon. It's a great gift for patients and the doctors who treat them. And as promised, I will leave this slide up to if anyone wants to take a picture of these resources of things that will help you get started. And I did promise that the medical professionals get to do the plant-based jumpstart for free from Rochester Lifestyle Medicine. So if you go scan this QR code in, you'll be able to get the jumpstart from Rochester Lifestyle for free. Okay, I know that was a fire hose of information, but you've been very patient. Hopefully some of this made some sense, and now you've got a firm understanding why eating plants is the healthiest thing we can all do for our bodies and the people who come after us. Thank you. Thank you.
So maybe a couple of you have a question or two, and maybe some of you would like to buy a book. If you want to buy a book, you can kind of line up over this way. And if you have a question or two, maybe we could do that while we're kind of doing our thing. So anybody have any question for Dr. Klaper? Yes.
Dr. Klaper, can you speak to how some forward-thinking physicians are talking about dementia as a type 3 diabetes?
Oh my, profound question. Dementia is a specter that haunts all of us. None of us wants Alzheimer's as we get older. It's a horrid disease. And you mentioned a unique term now, type 3 diabetes. And it turns out that the blood vessels of people with both Alzheimer's as well as the more common vascular dementia, the arteries are all clogged up, and there's a choking off of blood supply to the brain cells. And much of this has to do, again, I showed you what fat in the diet does to insulin receptors that crank up the blood sugars. Well, it's the very same fat that's clogging insulin receptors is also damaging their arteries. So many of them wind up with high blood sugars, and the brain arteries get the worst of it. And so hence the becomes type 3 diabetes when it shows the brain damage that's done. What can be done? Again, far better prevented than treated, no question. And I'm not going to tell you that a plant-based diet will magically reverse dementia, but it should stop the progression of it if people are headed in that direction. And as the arteries open up a little bit, the plaques melt away a little bit, Poiseuille's law kicks in, and blood flow to the brain will increase a little bit, but when we're talking about keeping your brain cells from dying, that can be a very important increase in blood flow. So a plant-based diet is the best preventive against vascular dementia, and if you've got early stages of it, it's definitely the move that you or your loved one can do to prevent that from turning into full-fledged dementia. So eat plants. When I was at True North, I had a T-shirt that said, "Eat plants and get on with it." You know, and basically that's the truth of that one.
One more question there.
Say about plant-based baked meats, Impossible Beyond.
What's that?
Impossible Burgers, Beyond Burgers, baked.
What about Impossible Burgers and Beyond?
So we've seen this introduction of these burgers, Impossible Burgers, Beyond Burgers, and they're delicious, and they really have that meaty texture and flavor. They're quite delicious to eat. No one is saying this is a bastion of healthy eating. But a couple things they've got going for them. I personally welcome them for two reasons. One, they are much healthier, much less damaging than a real beef burger. They have no cholesterol. They have no antibiotics. They don't have the pesticides. They have not caused the environmental damage. No animal gets slaughtered. They have less saturated fat. On every level, they are healthier, better choices, no question. And as a practicing clinician, they benefit my patients, especially Joe Meat and Potatoes guy, that I'm not going to give up my meat. But if you get him to bite into one of these burgers, ooh, yeah, that's not so bad. Oh, that's plant-based, I could eat that. You've changed the man's life. You've opened the door in his mind a little bit. The plant-based eating is not so terrible. And so I use these burgers as a transition food. You don't be eating them every day. You know, they're a treat. Even for the plant, you have one once a month if you're really remembering how much you used to love burgers. So I have one out of the freezer once a month. And for the transition folks, once a week for a few months, that's fine. Nothing bad's going to happen from that. You know, don't eat them every day, but they're far from terrible. And in this age where we want people to transition from animal-based diets, I welcome them. I'm glad they exist. And just because they're ultra-processed, that big broad brush has been used to defame everything that gets processed for good reasons in most cases. But here's one ultra-processed food that I think has some value.
Now, I know a number of you have questions. We have to leave at 9 o'clock. So if anyone wants to buy a book, you need to come up, and then you can ask a question while you're waiting in line.
Yes, and I can take one more while you're waiting here.